All right. Up next on Eye on the Community, of course, I'm your host, Sean Anthony. I'm joined by City Councilwoman Liz Brown. Liz, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good, good, good. Let me give some context to our listeners out there. It says in the first 7 months of 2017, there were 17 shootings and 7 homicides in the Wedgwood community. The neighborhood was called the deadliest location in Columbus at that time. Then the My Project USA soccer program, which was a direct response to the rise in violence. My Project USA works to protect and empower Columbus youth by providing access to educational, healthy, and fun programs that help keep them safe by connecting them with positive influences. The soccer program was started by a 16-year-old high school student turned coach who wanted to provide alternatives to drug and gang activity that led to violence for youth in the area. The first step was the launch of a pilot team that was highly successful in 2017. Fast forward, Columbus City Council began supporting the program in 2018, which led to the development of a year-round program that engages hundreds of children on a weekly basis. So let's pick up right there, Liz. First of all, how did you become aware about this youth soccer league program in Wedgwood?
Direct advocacy from the neighborhood youth that organized. My Project USA is a nonprofit that we had some familiarity with, but it was really the young people themselves who reached out to council and expressed their desire to take hold of the violent situation, the violent year that was 2017, and sort of chart a better path for young people in the community.
Awesome. Why did you think it was important to support the program? I mean, other than obvious reasons,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was as you mentioned in your introduction, it was a neighborhood with persistent violence problems. It was an area where we also had a community partner in My Project USA on the ground, already working with families to make things better. So the group had previously run like a reading buddies program for younger children and older children to have that like near peer mentorship relationship. They'd done that at the Wedgwood community, and the young people engaged in that wanted to do this soccer program. So there was an organization with a proven record, and there were eager, youth leaders who could make the program work.
you know, not to deviate too far, oftentimes we hear why there's so much violence in certain communities throughout our country because it's lack of resources of programs like this. And, to the surface, some may think that's really not going to help the violence, but this is proof that it actually does make a change when young people have access and resource to doing something active within the community. Would you agree?
I fully agree with that. There are around 2,000 kids who live in the Wedgwood neighborhood. Many of them are Somali, and many of them love soccer. And the presence of resources, it looks like a lot of different things, just as you just said. The presence of resources can be, better wages for families, better health care, all of those things which we have to fight for. But it can also mean these programs for youth that really dignify them, show them that we see them, and again allow for this special, I think, relationship cultivation between older youth and younger youth. That's a special relationship, and we really would do well to try to encourage that kind of near peer leadership across the city.
Liz, talk about the funding with the Columbus City Council. How does the funding provide support to the program? How does that help?
Yep. So the funding from City Council supports transportation costs to get kids to the games, as well as costs of reserving the fields to play. We began supporting the program in 2018, and that led to the development of a year-round program. So I do want to highlight that last year during the pandemic, My Project USA was still able to safely engage 250 youth. And City Council provided funding for the program again at our last week's meeting to cover the costs of that transportation, facility, field reservations. With a return to normal and then this new level of funding being allocated, $75,000, our hope is to engage between 350 and 500 youth this year in 2021.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how do programs like this relate to city council's efforts to reimagine public safety?
That is a great question. So we set aside a $10 million fund to reimagine public safety. This investment was part of the first, I guess, down payment on that fund that council has allocated about 1.5 million so far out of the 10 million that we intend to spend this year. We want to invest in healthy neighborhoods and healthy families to address the root causes of violence. We believe that by investing in healthy neighborhoods and healthy families, that's the best way to address those root causes for all the reasons you and I have kind of already dug into.
Right.
Providing these engaging activities for young people really provides a safe space for them to go and provides alternatives to the more dangerous activities that we know can lead to violence and therefore tragedy.
Absolutely. This is awesome. This is really awesome to hear. So what would you say, Liz, has been the greatest success of the program?
Actually, I think the greatest success. So the greatest success is, look, we brought down the violence rate. There has not been a year. There's still violence that plagues the Wedgwood community. I won't sugarcoat that, but there has been no year that's come close to 2017. So on one hand, that's the greatest success. But I actually want to lift up the kids themselves. One of the teams is the Hilltop Tigers, and they won their championship,
Awesome.
which we got to give a trophy to them and celebrate them in front of their parents and others. And they won. I mean, this is intramural soccer. A lot of the kids they're playing are from suburban communities with more resources. And these kids are incredible. And they've won a couple years of championships, several of the different teams. They make up more than one team, but we've celebrated a lot of championships over the years.
That's
The
cool. Do,
last 4
do you
years.
see more involvement with the adults, the parents as well with this new program?
I hope so. We try to we do award ceremonies every year, and we try to host it at a time that we know parents can come.
Okay.
Not in those immediate after school hours, but maybe something more like evening, and provide foods to try to get full family engagement.
Nice.
Sometimes we see siblings show up instead of parents. Sometimes we have parents there. And again, the coaches are all young people from the neighborhood too, but that older youth category, 16 to 20 to 24 kind of. And they're always there cheering the kids on too. So the
That's
kids are
good.
really the highlight. They're amazing.
Last question. What's the long-term goal for this program?
Well, the long-term goal is to scale the program to where it needs to get, which I hope this year will do. We've really increased capacity. If we can reach up to 500 kids, I think that's a really sustainable number. I have felt that in past years, we can always be reaching more, has kind of been my gut. And I do think we're going to reach a good saturation point and then be able to sustain it. Ideally, really integrate it into our Rec and Park model as well. Columbus Recreation and Parks runs so much good programming. And as much as we can get this sort of neighborhood-based, youth-led programming as part and parcel of what Rec and Parks does on a daily basis or a yearly basis, that would be a gold standard for the future.
Awesome. Liz, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Any information you want to get out there to our listeners before we conclude?
Go to My Project USA if you're interested in signing up for the program. Again, the city funds it, but it's all run by them. So head over to My Project USA's website, and I don't know the URL, but easily Googleable, and get your children signed up.
Googleable. That's a new word for me. I'm
There
going to
you
use that
go.
this week. Liz Brown, Columbus City Councilwoman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Always great to see you.